There is a dangerous misconception we are taught from childhood. We are taught that to be good means to be harmless. We are taught that to be moral means to be agreeable. And so, many of us spend our entire lives polishing a mask of extreme niceness. We never raise our voices. We accommodate everyone else's needs before our own. We smile when we are angry. We say yes when every fiber of our being screams no. We believe this makes us virtuous. But Carl Jung, the founder of analytical psychology, argued that this kind of compulsive niceness is not virtue. In fact, he suggested it is often a sign of a profound and dangerous psychological split. Jung famously said, "I would rather be whole than good." Why? Because a person who is obsessively nice is not actually integrating their capacity for harm. They are repressing it, and that repression comes at a terrible cost. In this analysis, we are going to explore the dark psychology of the nice person. We will uncover why your agreeableness might actually be a trauma response, how your repressed aggression is slowly poisoning your relationships, and how to stop being nice so that you can finally become real. To understand why niceness can be pathological, we must first look at the Jungian concept of the persona. The persona is the social mask we wear to fit into society. It is necessary. You cannot function in the world without a persona. You need a certain level of politeness and social grace to hold a job, to navigate a city, to interact with strangers. However, the danger arises when we become identified with the persona. This happens when you stop realizing that you are wearing a mask, and you start believing that you are the mask. For the chronically nice individual, the persona is usually constructed around safety. To understand this, we must go back to where it started. The parentified child. Many people who suffer from compulsive niceness did not choose it. They were trained into it. Often, this begins in a home environment where the emotional hierarchy was reversed. Instead of the parents managing the emotions of the child was tasked with managing the emotions of the parents. Perhaps you had a parent who was volatile, prone to sudden rages or deep depressions. To survive, you learned to become a son. You learned to read the micro-expressions on your mother's face or the heaviness of your father's footsteps. You learned that if you were good, if you were quiet, helpful, and had no needs of your own, you could stabilize the household. Imagine a 7-year-old child who notices that whenever they express anger, a parent withdraws love or explodes in rage. Very quickly, that child learns anger is dangerous. Having needs is dangerous. Making mistakes is dangerous. But being pleasing, being easy, that feels safe. So the child becomes the caretaker. They listen to their parents' marital problems. They calm them down after work. They praise, soothe, and absorb. The roles have quietly inverted. The child has become the emotional parent in this environment. Niceness was not a moral choice. It was a survival strategy. You learned that having a self was dangerous and that mirroring the needs of others was safe. Over decades, this calcified. The strategy that kept you safe as a child becomes the prison that suffocates you as an adult. You curate a personality that is entirely devoid of sharp edges. You become the listener, the helper, the peacemaker. But Jung warned that the brighter the light, the darker the shadow. If your conscious personality, your persona's 100% agreeable, helpful, and selfless, Where did your selfishness go? Where did your aggression go? Where did your capacity for cruelty go? It didn't disappear. It was simply relegated to the unconscious. This brings us to the second core concept, the shadow. Shadow consists of every trait we possess but refuse to acknowledge because they violate our moral code or social conditioning. For the nice person, the shadow is dense and heavy. It is filled with everything you have spent a lifetime denying, while you are consciously being polite to your coworker who stole your idea. Your shadow is screaming with rage, while you are consciously agreeing to organize the family holiday again. Your shadow is filled with bitter resentment and a desire to abandon everyone. Jung argued that psychic energy acts like a law of physics. Energy cannot be destroyed, only transferred. When you repress an emotion like anger, you are not deleting it. You are compressing it. Imagine a beach ball. The nice person is trying to hold a giant beach ball of anger underwater. It takes immense, constant effort. On the surface, the water looks calm. The person looks smiling and serene. But beneath the surface, there is a massive, chaotic force pushing upward, waiting for a moment of weakness to explode. This is why nice people are often exhausted. It takes a tremendous amount of psychological calorie burn to keep the shadow submerged. You feel drained not only because you are doing too much for others, but because you are in a constant, invisible war with your own nature. So, what happens when the beach ball slips? Because the nice person cannot allow themselves to be openly aggressive, that would destroy their persona. Aggression must leak out sideways. This creates what psychologists call projective identification, or more commonly, passive aggression. The nice person often becomes a master of subtle manipulation. Because you cannot ask for what you want directly, since that feels selfish, you must maneuver others into giving it to you. You might use guilt. You might use martyrdom. You might sigh loudly, hoping someone asks you what is wrong, rather than stating your needs. This is the silent contract. The nice person thinks, I have been so good to you. I have sacrificed everything for you. Therefore, you owe me love and obedience. But because this contract was never spoken, the other person doesn't know they signed it. When the other person inevitably fails to pay up when they don't appreciate you enough, when they don't read your mind, the nice person falls into the role of the victim. And here lies the twist. The victim is a power position. By being the one who has been wronged, the nice person gains moral superiority. They get to look down on the selfish people around them. This is the dark secret of the nice guy or nice girl. Their niceness is not a gift. It is a loan, and it comes with heavy interest. This dynamic is most destructive where it matters most. In our romantic relationships, there is a tragedy in the love life of the chronic people pleaser. You would think that being nice would make you an excellent partner. But in reality, compulsive niceness often kills intimacy. Why? Because intimacy requires two distinct individuals. It requires friction. It requires the ability to say no, and I disagree. When you are obsessively agreeable, you are not offering your partner a person. You are offering them a mirror. You reflect back what you think they want to see. Initially, this feels like harmony. But over time, it feels like emptiness. Your partner may begin to feel lonely, even when you are right there. Because they are not interacting with a real human being, they are interacting with a customer service agent. Consider a fictional example. Anna has been in a relationship for 5 years. She prides herself on being low maintenance. She never complains. She always says, "Whatever you want is fine." Her partner chooses the vacations, the restaurants, even the shows they watch. Anna thinks this makes her easy to love. But over time, her partner begins to feel an odd sense of distance. There is no resistance, no honest pushback, no clear preferences. They start describing her as nice. But flat, on the surface, everything looks peaceful. Underneath, Anna is quietly resentful. She feels unseen, but she has never allowed herself to be seen. Eventually, her resentment bursts out in an irrational fight about something minor like the way the dishwasher is loaded. Her partner is confused and defensive. Where is all this coming from? From Anna's perspective, it has been building for years. Furthermore, the nice partner often unconsciously trains the other person to become a tyrant. If you have no boundaries, if you never say stop, the other person will keep pushing until they hit a wall. If the wall isn't there, they will eventually lose respect for you. Jung noted that we cannot respect someone who has no capacity for dangerousness. We may like them, we may use them, but we do not respect them. Without respect, desire fades. This is why the nice guy or nice girl is often left for someone more difficult. Because that difficult person is at least real up to this point. We have focused on what gets repressed: anger, selfishness, the capacity for cruelty. But Jung and later depth psychologists added an important nuance. Not all of what we repress is bad. Some of it is the best in us. This brings us to the golden shadow. When people discuss the shadow, they usually focus on the dark, rage, envy, cruelty, selfishness. But Jung pointed to something else hidden down there as well. He suggested that a large part of the shadow is not just our worst traits, but also our best traits, our strength, our power, our authority that we have disowned because they didn't fit our persona. This is what Robert Bly and other Jungians have called the golden shadow. If your persona is defined as the endlessly nice person, what do you have to repress to maintain that image? You have to repress your capacity to say no. You have to repress your leadership. You have to repress your capacity to disappoint others and survive it. You may even have to repress your intelligence or insight if it threatens someone you depend on. For many chronically nice people, the golden shadow contains everything they secretly admire but are terrified to become. The assertive friend who calmly sets boundaries, the colleague who says, "No, that doesn't work for me," the person who can walk away from a relationship that is draining them. Let's make this concrete. Imagine Mark, who is known among his friends as the nicest guy you'll ever meet. He never argues. He never complains. At work, he constantly picks up extra tasks so others can leave early. He tells himself this is generosity. Secretly, he idolizes his manager, who can say in a meeting, "No, we're not doing that," without flinching. Mark both admires and resents him. He calls him ruthless and cold, but at the same time, he watches him with fascination. What Mark doesn't realize is that he is looking at his golden shadow. The manager's firmness, his ability to tolerate disapproval, is exactly what Mark needs to develop. not the manager's possible lack of empathy, but his clear sense of self. As long as Mark refuses to own his own capacity for firmness, he will continue to live in the shadow of niceness, and his admiration will curdle into resentment. Or consider Lena, who grew up in a religious environment where women were expected to be selfless, quiet, and accommodating. Any sign of ambition was labeled selfish. As an adult, Lena finds herself strangely obsessed with women who are unapologetically successful. She scrolls through their profiles, criticizing them for being attention-seeking, but she cannot stop watching. Part of her despises them. Part of her wants to be them. Lena's golden shadow contains her disowned ambition, her hunger for recognition, her capacity to stand in the spotlight without apologizing. As long as she projects these qualities onto others, idealizing or demonizing them, she will never be able to own them as part of herself. This is the paradox of the golden shadow. The very traits you condemn in others may be the exact traits you desperately need to integrate in yourself. Not their cruelty, not their lack of conscience, but their capacity to protect their limits, their ability to live with being disliked, their willingness to be visible. The gold is in the dark. The power you are searching for is hidden in the very emotions and impulses you have tried so hard to suppress. Jung used a specific Greek word to describe what happens when we live in a one-sided way for too long. In angiodromia, roughly translated, it means running into the opposite. When your conscious life is rigidly one-sided, when you are always accommodating, always pleasing, always soft, unconscious slowly builds up. Over time, this opposite tendency gathers energy until one day it breaks through, in a way that feels completely out of character. This is why the nicest people sometimes have the most shocking explosions. A person who has never raised their voice suddenly screams in a public place. A person who has always stayed in bad relationships suddenly walks out and never looks back. A person who has always said yes starts saying no to everyone and everything, burning bridges as they go. From the outside, it looks like they snapped. From the inside, it feels like something alien took over. But in Jungian terms, this is not something foreign invading you. This is your repressed opposite, finally demanding to be recognized. Enantiodromia is the psyche's brutal way of restoring balance when we refuse to cooperate. If you repeatedly ignore your anger, your boundaries, and your need for integrity, the unconscious will eventually force a correction. And the more you have denied it, the more extreme that correction tends to be. This is why some people swing from self-sacrificing to cruel, from endlessly available to completely cut off, from extremely nice to suddenly vindictive. It is not true integration. It is a pendulum swing. If you recognize yourself in this, if you have had moments where you said or did something you later didn't even recognize as you, that is not proof that you are broken. It is proof that you have been one-sided for too long. The goal of Jungian work is not to swing permanently into the opposite extreme, but to bring both sides into consciousness so you can choose your response, rather than being possessed by it. So how do you move from compulsive niceness to conscious wholeness? How do you stop living as a persona, the harmless, endlessly accommodating version of you, and begin integrating your real feelings? Let's walk through this in a more detailed, clinical way, a shadow work protocol tailored specifically for the nice person. Step 1. Name the persona. Give your niceness a clear, almost clinical label. For example, the good child, the helpful one, the always available friend, or the peacekeeper. The point is to see it as a role you play, not as your entire identity. You might even say out loud, "This is my persona. It keeps me safe. It helped me survive, but it is not the whole of who I am." That simple separations, seeing the mask as a mask, creates the first bit of space for something more real to emerge. Step 2. Track the micro-betrayals with shadow journaling. For 1 week, become a detective of your own resentment. Carry a small notebook or use a notes app. Every time you feel a subtle inner flincher, tiny ugh, a moment of irritation, a sense of heaviness, pause and write down what just happened. Note 3 things: what you said or did, what you actually felt, and what you would have said if you weren't afraid of consequences. For example, I agreed to stay late at work. I actually felt tired and annoyed. If I wasn't afraid of being seen as lazy, I would have said, "I can't stay late today." At the end of each day, review the list and finish this sentence for each event. If I wasn't afraid of losing connection, I would have said, "Let yourself be brutally honest, even if the words feel harsh, selfish, or ugly." This is crucial. You are giving your shadow a voice. You're not acting on it. You're listening to it. You might be shocked at what comes out. "I don't care about this problem. I don't want to help you. I need you to leave me alone." On the surface, this looks unkind, but underneath, it often reveals very healthy needs. The need for rest, for space, for respect, for reciprocity. Step 3. Dialoguing with the shadow. Once you've collected a week of micro-betrayals, choose one recurring pattern. Maybe it's overcommitting at work or always being the emotional dumping ground for friends. Then, set aside 10 minutes and write a dialogue between your persona and your shadow. On one side of the page, write as the nice persona, "I have to say yes," or "They'll think I'm selfish." On the other side, reply as the shadow, "I'm tired of carrying everything. I'm angry that you never protect us." Let them argue. Let the shadow tell the persona how it feels to be constantly suppressed. Let the persona explain its fear of conflict or rejection. This exercise might feel strange, but it externalizes the inner war. Instead of being unconsciously possessed by either side, you begin to witness both. You are no longer just the nice one or the angry one. You are the space in which both speak. Step 4. Practice small. Honest no's. If you try to go from always yes to radical no overnight, your nervous system will panic. Instead, choose 1 or 2 low-stakes situations where you can experiment with a small, honest no. It might sound like, "I can't help with that this week," or "I don't have the capacity for a call tonight," or simply, "No, thank you." Start with people who feel relatively safe. Do not begin with the most intimidating person in your life. You are training your nervous system, not proving a point. Expect to feel guilt and anxiety. That is normal. That is the old persona warning you. You are in danger. When the guilt comes up, pause and ask yourself, did I actually harm anyone? Or did I simply refuse to overextend myself? Most of the time, nothing catastrophic happens. The other person adjusts. The world does not collapse. and slowly, your unconscious begins to update its map. Setting boundaries does not equal death. Step 5. Embody the golden shadow. Now we turn to the part of you that is not just angry, but powerful. Choose one trait you admire in others but feel isn't you. Maybe it's directness, firmness, ambition, or self. Write it at the top of a page. My golden shadow trait, assertiveness. Then list 3 people who embody that trait. For each person, ask, what exactly do they do that I don't allow myself to do? Perhaps they state their opinions without disclaimers. Perhaps they end conversations when they're tired. Perhaps they ask for payment without apologizing. These specific behaviors are your map. For one situation this week, deliberately act as if you possessed that trait. If your golden shadow is assertiveness, you might say in a meeting, I'd like to add my perspective, even if your heart is racing. If it is leadership, you might say, let's stop here. This isn't working. If it is self-respect, you might answer a request with, that doesn't work for me. Do it once. Then observe. Did the world end? Did everyone abandon you? Or did things remain surprisingly intact? Often, you'll discover that other people adjust far more easily to your boundaries than you expect. The person who is most disturbed by your assertiveness is not the mature, old persona. Step 6. Replace being nice with being truthful. There is a critical distinction here. Niceness is a performance. It is about how you appear. Kindness is about your intention. It can include hard truths. A truthful response might sound like, I care about you, and because of that, I need to be honest. I'm feeling resentful about how much I've been taking on, or I want to stay connected, but I can't be available in the way I've been before. This is not hostility. This is adult honesty. Your goal is not to become rude. Your goal is to be someone whose yes means yes and whose no means no. Someone who can disappoint others without collapsing into shame. Someone who can hold their own center without needing to appear endlessly good. If you see yourself in this pattern, the compulsive peacemaker, the good child in an adult body, understand this. Nothing is wrong with you. Your niceness was a solution. It was an intelligent adaptation to an environment where honesty felt dangerous. But what once protected you is now suffocating you. The work ahead is not about becoming cruel. It is about becoming honest. It is about allowing your full emotional range, including anger, frustration, and the desire for space, to come into consciousness. The dangerous psychology of nice people is not that they are secretly evil. It is that they are split. Their light and their dark are at war. The persona and the shadow are locked in a stalemate. Integration begins the moment you can look at your own capacity for harm, for selfishness, for power, and say, this, too, is me, and I am responsible for it. When you stop trying to be purely good, you gain the chance to become something far more valuable, a whole human being. Someone who is capable of saying yes freely because they are equally capable of saying no. Someone who doesn't need to be nice anymore because they have finally become real.